After 2 weeks of jury selection, 22 witnesses, and a month of testimony, lawyers for former President Donald Trump have presented their closing arguments in his criminal hush money trial. The prosecution is now wrapping their case. The former president is also staying on script with his contempt for the court proceedings.
This is a dark day in America. We have a rigged court case that should have never been brought. And it should have been brought in another jurisdiction. As you know, we asked for that, and the judge never allows us anything.
Meanwhile, the White House is calling a deadly airstrike on Rafah devastating and heartbreaking. At least 45 people, including women and children, were killed when an Israeli strike set fire to a camp housing displaced Palestinians. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the strike a tragic mishap. Our Ed O'Keefe is at the White House tonight with the latest on Israel. But we start with our Errol Barnett, who is outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Errol, good to see you. The defense hammered away today at Michael Cohen's testimony, really trying to chip away at his credibility. He is the star witness. So tell us about why they are trying, or how I should say, how they tried to do that.
Well, the why, Ouija, great to see you, is because Cohen is the glue between Donald Trump and the payments to Stormy Daniels, as well as the scheme to keep it from the general public as far as the prosecution is concerned. So Todd Blanche, in front of the jury today, came out swinging, coining a lot of phrases, being very animated in front of the jury, where he said Michael Cohen is you've heard the expression, goat. He's a gloat, the greatest liar of all time. He says that Cohen made the decision to pay off Stormy Daniels, and that then he and Daniels worked together to extort Trump for money. Blanche also made the argument that the key piece of evidence at the core of this case, which are the checks made out to Michael Cohen from Donald Trump in the amount of $35,000, where the memo says legal agreement or retainer agreement for legal services, was accurate because there was a verbal agreement between Cohen and Trump for him to be retained as a lawyer, and that because Cohen cannot be trusted, all of the charges against Trump should be dismissed. Let's not forget they've moved for a mistrial many times, while Judge Merchan has denied that effort. But Blanche came out and said basically to the jury, you shouldn't believe anything Cohen has said. So it was their last impression in front of the jury, hoping to plant as much doubt as possible into Michael Cohen's testimony.
And the jury has also heard now from the prosecution that has presented closing arguments. Tell us about their strategy.
Well, what's interesting, Ouija, is initially Joshua Steinglass, who's making the closing argument for the prosecution, he acknowledged that Cohen has in fact lied, but he said, put it in context. What did he lie about? Lying to Congress was to protect Trump, lying about the effort to develop a Trump Tower in Moscow. He pleaded guilty to his role in this scheme and acknowledged that. But he said Cohen flipped on Trump when it became clear that he was being made the fall guy for this hush money scheme, and only then did Cohen turn around and plead his case and admit to his role. Steinglass then step-sided Cohen and said, don't take Cohen's word for it. Look at what everything Cohen said that lined up with other testimony and evidence in the case. Then Steinglass basically started a PowerPoint presentation where he said all of this, starting with a summer of August 2015 meeting in Trump Tower, was part of an effort by men to gain more power and put Trump in office by suppressing negative stories, amplifying negative stories about opponents, and doing this catch and kill scheme. He then laid out text messages, phone calls, audio clips, video clips, and said to the jury, this is the narrative. This is all you need to believe, and you can go ahead and review this material if and when you need to. But it was the reason, he says, the suppression of these stories was the reason Trump was elected in 2016. And he said, generally speaking, Donald Trump corrupted those around him, and if they weren't loyal to him, they were effectively kicked out, and Trump has done everything in his power to cover it up. On the question of, well, how does this impact an election, and is this election interference, Steinglass was clear, and that the payments and repayments were part of an illegal corporate campaign contribution made by the publisher of the National Enquirer, done in collusion with the Trump campaign. And for those reasons, these 12 jurors must find Trump guilty on all counts. So obviously, two starkly different characterizations we're watching in the courtroom behind me. And the expectation is things may go late today so that the prosecution can finish those closing arguments.
And soon, Errol, those jurors will be poring over all of those pieces that you just laid out. Thank you so much for your reporting.